Hello there, Gemini. Thank you for stopping in for some Gemini Tarot Insights. This is going to be about something that is going on in your life right now, something that you are in the middle of, basically. I'm looking at one life cycle, and we all have several life cycles at the same time. We can have a family life cycle, a school life cycle, a work life cycle, a love life cycle, all running at the same time and sort of overlapping with each other. And we have life cycles because they set us up to learn something or to experience something. So the first things that we're going to be looking at are the things that go into setting up this life cycle for you, setting up that lesson or that experience. Then we'll look at the lesson or experience, and then we'll look at the fulfillment of the life cycle. Now, for most of you, the setup, you're going to recognize everything that I talk about in the setup of the lesson or experience. That will pretty much be current time frame. Once we start talking about the actual lesson or experience itself, that may or may not be something that you're already experiencing or going through. And then as we get into the fulfillment or the end of the life cycle, once again, that may or may not be happening in your experience yet. If it's not yet, then it will be very shortly. Life cycles can take a lot of different times to complete. I've seen life cycles complete as quickly as 20 minutes. I've also seen life cycles that have lasted years. It really all depends on your own free will, how quickly you embrace the lesson or experience of that life cycle so that you can move on and graduate and move up into the next life cycle. When I do talk about the end of the life cycle or the final part of the life cycle, the fulfillment of the life cycle, it's important that you realize I'm not talking about right before you kick the bucket. I'm just talking about before you graduate on to the next life cycle. Okay? So that's what we're going to be looking at. This is a very current thing that I'm putting. So I'll be making this recording and publishing this video today. And so I would say maybe for the next week or the next month, this would apply for some of you. For some of you, it won't even apply for that long. All right, so let's get started with your cards, Gemini. The first thing that I'm looking at is your environment, and your environment is anywhere that you have energy or effort, resources invested. So most times it comes up as home. Sometimes it does come up as work or school as well. And so what I'm seeing here is in your environment, things are comfortable. Things feel good. This is a place where you feel safe and you feel like you belong. You feel comfortable is the overriding word that I get here with your environment. Now, subconscious leanings are interesting looking at what we just had for the environment, because the subconscious leanings tell me that there was something that was really stressing you out. And now you're getting over that. And the subconscious is really working on how do I get beyond this stressful thing. So you may still be stressing out a little bit, but your subconscious is working on how to get past that. Or it could be that you are past that and it's because that's what your subconscious is working on. But you're on that cusp of really stressing out about something and just letting it go and being more comfortable and letting that stress go. Let's see. The next thing that I have talks to me about two different things, your learning style and also your communication style. So let's look at learning style first. I think you learn a lot from observing. I think that you really enjoy watching the people around you and seeing what you can learn from those people, from how they're behaving, from what they're doing. I think that that's your favorite way to learn, is actually through observation. You have a good memory and you have a quick mind, so you pick up things really quickly when you see other people doing them. As far as communication style, at least as it pertains to this life cycle, what do we have coming in here? I think for this life cycle, there is some kind of change that you're trying to make, that you're bringing into effect in your life. And for the communication, you're trying to make sure that your communication is solid, that it sends one message, that it's not sending out mixed signals. You're trying to communicate in a very clear, consistent way whenever it comes to this particular life cycle. And that's because there is some change coming about, or some change that you're making. And if you don't communicate in a very clear and consistent way, then that change won't really be effective. All right, so looking at your work, first we're going to look at that outer work, those things you do that bring you fulfillment every day, hopefully, that way that you make your living. And so it looks like that with work, there's some kind of situation going on right now where you're kind of being called to be the peacemaker. And this can play out a couple of ways. You can actually be a mediator. You can be somebody who is coming between two people or two groups of people and settling things in some kind of peaceful way. Or this can play out as there's been some conflict between you and another person or you and another group of people at work, and you're kind of being called to be the bigger person, the one that puts the conflict behind so that progress can move forward. So one way or the other, that's playing out in your work life as far as the things that you do every day to make a living. Looking at inner work, I think your inner work right now has a lot to do with focusing on things that you see as faults on your part, and you're really focusing on finding some resolution for those, finding ways to make those less pronounced than what they have been. So you're kind of looking at yourself with a more critical eye. It's not like people are accusing you of things and you're just saying, oh, whatever, go jump off the dock. I think that you're not so much paying attention really to what other people are saying, but you are taking a good hard look at yourself and realizing, some of these things that I've been doing are kind of causing me problems. It might be helpful for me to change a behavior or two here, or a thought pattern or here too, or a thought pattern or two here. Dyslexia of the mouth. So the inner work is really about making yourself into more of the person that you actually want to be, in to making those things about yourself that you don't like so much into making them less dominant in your personality. That's inner work. Okay, so that part of your personality which is being grown or expanded right now. The word that I'm hearing is patience. So patience is being grown or expanded. That's always an easy lesson. Yoo-hoo! Wow. Sorry, guys. But it's also coming across as a certain kind of patience. There is a patience about something that you have invested in somehow, whether you've invested in your emotions, whether you've shared your heart with somebody, whether you've invested your financial resources or some other kind of material resources. There's something that you've invested in with the expectation that there would be some kind of payout that would come back to you from that. Once again, whether it's an emotional payout or a financial payout or some other kind of payout. And where you're being expanded right now is learning how important timing is, and learning that what I'm hearing is just because something was promised at one date doesn't necessarily mean it's actually ready on that date. And so sometimes if we really want the good, full results of what we've invested in, we have to wait till those good, full results have come to maturity to have those. And so that's the part of you that's being grown or expanded right now, is patience and waiting for the full results before you try to bring in the harvest here. All right, so the next thing that we're looking at is those things that you stand for. So Geminis, this is a real interesting thing to see. So some of you feel like you are really blessed. Good things just happen for you. Things are always working out for you. You're just blessed everywhere you go. And you know that and you appreciate that and you're grateful for that. And other people around you may not so much understand that things just go well for you, and they may be jealous of that or whatever. And you're kind of having to defend that. You're kind of having to stand up for that and say, it's just the way it is. Nothing I can do about it. It's just the way it is. Now, for others of you, this is coming in a little bit differently. For others of you, this is coming in as somebody in your life. Or let me back up a little bit. Let's say somebody in your sphere of influence is very blessed. And maybe you have people around you that are jealous of that person. And you're having to stand up and say, you know what? So that person's blessed. That's great. Good for them. And you may be saying to this other person, everybody can be blessed. There's no reason to be jealous of one person because they're blessed, because it doesn't take away from anything that we have for them to be blessed. And so kind of sticking up for somebody who is blessed in your sphere of influence. So for some of you, it's you that you're sticking up for that's blessed. And for some of you, you're kind of sticking up for somebody else that's blessed that somebody outside of you is jealous of. So we've got that going on. And then we also have, the next thing is how other people see you. You just have some interesting things coming up in this life cycle. But other people see you as somebody who is leaving some kind of negative influence that has been dragging you down. They're seeing you as leaving something like that behind and looking for something better to replace that with. So they're seeing you as walking away from something that dragged you down, even if you have to cut your losses to walk away from something that has dragged you down or depleted you. But they see you as doing that. And I think they see you as going through a dark time. I think they recognize that this is not an easy thing for you to do. And so they're watching you do that and realizing that this is not an easy time for you to do this. All right, so let's look at the lesson or experience. Now, this is where we transition from all this other stuff that I've talked about before. You should recognize pretty well. And even in a general reading, I like to think that I'm hitting at least 85% of the time. So in a general reading, of course, not everything is going to apply to everybody. And my agreement with Sacred Spirit is that most of it will apply to most of you who watch who are Geminis. So here's the deal. If in this part of the reading I haven't hit for you at least 85% of the time, then I would say that this spread, this reading, what I'm looking at here, probably does not apply to you. In fact, I wouldn't really even watch the rest of the video unless you just happen to be curious or whatever. But I wouldn't watch the rest of the video and say, oh, well, this is going to happen for me. Based on the fact that if I pulled less than 85% correct on these others that were, if you're looking at what I'm saying and you're going, whoa, Amista, you're a whack, you want to kind of figure this reading is not for you, okay? So when we get into the future stuff, you don't want to expect this future stuff to be happening for you if I've missed on the stuff. If I've hit like 85% on this stuff that's right now, then you want to take the future stuff a little bit more seriously. Still, nothing is written in stone. Free will can change or anything, but this is going to be more applicable to you than to the people that, I wasn't just hitting right on the nail on the first part. So let's get into what may be in the future or what you may be actually starting through right now. So what may be in the future or you may be dealing with right now, the lesson or experience of this life cycle is that you are going to be asking somebody for help. And this can be financial help. This can be emotional help and support. This can be, I think we're going to stick with those two. I think it's going to be something financial or material or emotional help. Now, financial or material, when I say material, that doesn't necessarily it could be financial, but it doesn't have to. Material is more of an open window. So maybe you need to borrow somebody's dolly because you're moving. That would be something that you would ask for. That would be a material help. It's something that you put your hands on that would be helpful for you that you have to ask for. Okay? So some kind of financial or material help, or some kind of emotional help. And for some of you, I feel like you're actually asking for both. Maybe not from the same sources, but you're asking for both types of help. And that's part of the lesson and experience here, is to be able to ask for help. And for some of you, asking for help is not normal. You're used to being the captain of your own ship, and you're used to having everything under control, and you're used to not having to ask for help. And so that would be why this would show up as a lesson or experience, because this is a little bit uncomfortable. This is a little bit different for you. So this asking for help that's coming in. Okay? So some of you are going to be asking for help as we get into fulfillment of this life cycle. So as you are learning about asking for help, we've got some things going on as you're integrating this into your life. One of the things that we have going on for you, Geminis, is we have you coming into a place where you're really doing some introspective work. You're looking inside yourself at what makes you tick. I like to call this the pre-reading card. This is the very base beginning of what makes somebody who's a good psychic. They have to really understand themselves at a super deep level. There can't be any BS within themselves, that they're telling themselves. And so many of us, we have so much BS that we tell ourselves as a matter of life, as a matter of coping. So when we get to that point where we're really looking at the real truth of our core self, that can be a big deal. And it feels to me like you guys are really getting in there deep, deep, deep before this life cycle is over. And I call this the pre-reading card because when you get to know yourself that well, you start to realize that you have certain patterns that you follow just naturally. And what happens is once you get out of that time when you're just looking at yourself, as you come back around other people again, you start noticing that they have similar patterns going on in the way that they speak, in the way they handle situations, even maybe in their body language. And so because you know what that pattern means to you, you can kind of associate, oh, this is something similar going on in this person to when I go through da 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 da. And so you kind of know from their patterns that are similar to yours kind of what they're going through. And so I call it the pre-reading card because you're not really tuning in any kind of psychic way on what's going on with them, but they don't really know that. Like if you would say to them, it seems like da 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 da, based on these patterns that you saw that were similar to yours, and you were right, and most of the time you will be, then they would think that you knew something just out of the blue. They don't realize they're sending off these clues and these signals to somebody who really starts to understand humanity at a deep level. So that's why I call it the pre-reading card. It's not really reading, but people who are not you are not going to realize it's not really reading because most people just don't go that deep. We live in a culture or society where people don't have the time to go that deep, and it's not a priority to go that deep. So I think that you are going to be spending some time really getting to know yourself at a very deep level, and I think it's going to have some great benefits for you moving forward as you interact with other people as well. Now, the other thing that I see coming up here, there's two other things. One of these things is that there is some old heartache that has been hanging around. And maybe this old heartache came from the source of whatever it is that you have walked away from that was depleting you. Maybe that heartache is still kind of lingering, even though you've walked out of that situation or out of that relationship or whatever it was for you. But that old heartache is becoming healed up. You're starting to feel better. You're starting to heal up as you go along your way, as you're learning that it's okay to ask for help when you need it. So some old heartache is healing up. I feel like for a lot of you, there is some abandonment issues that are showing up, that as people are helping you, you're starting to realize that maybe you felt abandoned, but you're really not alone. There are people out there who actually really care about how things work out for you. And so that's going to be part of what's going on. I do feel like there's more too. There's some more surfacey stuff as well that's being healed up too as you go through whatever this situation is. Um, and then the next thing that we have coming up is you are Geminis, I think you are going to be getting much more comfortable with your own emotions than you have before. And that kind of makes sense when we see you looking inside yourself as deeply as I saw earlier, that you would be getting more comfortable with your emotions. First of all, you're going to start acknowledging what your emotions are about different topics and different things that are going on in your life. Secondly, as you acknowledge those emotions, you're going to start to realize, do I feel comfortable with these emotions, or do I feel like maybe these are a little out of whack? And you're going to start being able to adjust things and to really accept yourself and accept your emotions in that area. And for an air sign, that's a pretty big deal to get to that point. That's really a good that's a good thing. That's like amazing, okay? But just getting really comfortable with your emotions. Now, I'm not saying that there won't be some growing pains with this. I think there will be some growing pains with getting comfortable with your emotions. I think actually, Geminis, you are going to have some emotional outbursts, some kind of volcanic eruptions where, you've been holding some things in for a long time and something is going to happen that sort of triggers that volcanic eruption of, okay, that's just too much. And all this stuff from who knows how long just kind of blows out as you speak. Not really the best way to express your emotions, but if you've got that stuff held in for so long, it's going to have to come out sooner or later. So there's some advice that comes with this. This is a good time to start journaling about your emotions. That way you can have your volcanic explosion at the computer or in a notebook instead of, spewing molten lava and ash on the people that you love that are around you. Or at least, that'll minimize some of that spewing a little bit, because as you get comfortable with your emotions, there are going to be some growing pains. There are going to be sometimes when you look at your emotions and you realize what they are, and you're just going to be shocked, and it's going to come out. It's like, whoa, now you're acknowledging these emotions. And then what happens after you've acknowledged them, even if they come out in a way that's not what we consider, nice or pretty, still, once they come out, then we can kind of settle into the emotions of now and be very much more in the present than what we could when we were carrying around all that bottled up stuff. So advice here, so you don't have volcanic eruptions on the people that you love and say things later on that you wish you wouldn't have said to them. Start journaling. Start journaling right now. And just write about your feelings. Get them out of your system, so that if something does trigger you, at least, some of those really old ones are already out of your system, so that doesn't have to come out verbally on somebody that you care about and that you don't want to say things that you regret. So that's the advice about how to get around that. But right now, the way the energy sits, there will be some volcanic eruptions as you come into that place where you are very comfortable with your emotions. Okay. So Geminis, like I said earlier, this is a very current life cycle. This is something that most of this is already, the setup is already in place. Lesson or experience, you may already be asking people for help. Maybe that's something that you're just realizing is coming up and you're going to have to. Maybe you don't realize it yet. Maybe that's coming down the pike. Same thing with that fulfillment, with, you know, really understanding yourself at a deep level, with having heartache that's healing up, you know, with some of these growing pains as you come to acknowledge and know more about your feelings. All of that stuff may be coming down the pike, or you may be starting to walk through that. So, yeah, this was my pleasure and my honor to be able to do this. And if you guys would like a private reading, you all know what my website is, and there's information there to contact me. So everybody, have a wonderful, wonderful day, and I'll see you all back in the next video. Peace out.